The most common advice in America will tell you to delay Social Security. Wait until 67. Wait until 70. Every year you wait, your check grows roughly 8%. They're not wrong about the math, but they're often wrong about you, because the delay to 70 strategy is built on one assumption that never gets stated out loud, that you are average. Average health, average spending needs, average family situation. And if that assumption doesn't hold up, the whole case for waiting falls apart. There are 5 specific situations where filing at 62 is not just acceptable, it's actually the smarter move. And I'm going to walk you through all 5 with the math so you can see exactly why. I'm PJ Gibbs, a financial advisor and the founder of Trello Wealth, and I help people build retirement plans built around their life, not a rule of thumb. Let's get into it. But before we get to the 5 reasons, it's worth being clear about what the conventional wisdom actually says and what it gets right. For anyone born in 1960 or later, full retirement age is 67. Filing at 62 permanently reduces your benefit by about 30%. That's according to the Social Security Administration. So your full benefit at 67 would be $2,000 a month. Filing at 62 gives you roughly $1,400 a month for life. And if you wait all the way to 70, that benefit grows to about $2,480 a month, because Social Security credits you an extra 8% for every year you delay past full retirement age up to age 70. That gap is real, and over a long retirement, it adds up to a significant amount of money. The conventional advice isn't irrational. Delayed Social Security benefits give you a bigger check, and that bigger check is inflation adjusted and lasts as long as you do. But delaying only wins if you live long enough to break even. The 62 versus 70 break even age based on current Social Security rules sits at roughly 80 to 81, which means you need to live past your early 80s for the delay strategy to pay off on cumulative dollars. I know what some of you are already thinking. PJ, average life expectancy is around 80 right now. So statistically, shouldn't most people delay? And that's fair. For someone in average health expecting an average lifespan, waiting has a reasonable mathematical argument behind it. But here's where the whole frame breaks down. Most people making this decision are not evaluating their average statistical outcome. They're evaluating their specific life, their health, their family, their cash flow, their retirement picture. And those specifics change the answer more than the break-even age does. So let's go through the 5 situations where 62 is actually the right call. The first reason is the one people are least comfortable saying out loud: your health. Social Security timing is fundamentally a break-even calculation, and the most important input in that calculation is not your benefit amount. It's how long you expect to collect. If your realistic life expectancy, based on your actual health picture, puts you below that 80 to 81 break-even age, delaying doesn't win the math. You never make up that difference. Imagine a couple. Call them Tom and Carol. Tom is 62, and he's been managing a serious heart condition for several years, and his doctors have been direct with him about his prognosis. Carol is healthy and 3 years younger. Tom's full retirement amount benefit would be $2,200 a month. At 62, he gets $1,540. If Tom delays to 70, he collects $2,728 a month. That sounds significantly better until you do the lifetime math. At 60, Tom starts collecting immediately. By the time he reaches 70, he's already received 8 years of $1,540 checks, which is roughly $147,000. Someone delaying to 70 would need to collect the higher benefit for more than a decade just to close that gap, bringing the break even well past 80. If Tom's honest health assessment suggests he's unlikely to get there, waiting costs him money he'll never see. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying this applies to everyone with a health concern, or that anyone should plan around a worst case. But if you have medical information that meaningfully changes your life expectancy outlook, you should be factoring that directly into your Social Security decision, not ignoring it in favor for a rule built around average outcomes. Claiming at 62 in this situation isn't giving up. It's making a clear-eyed decision about your actual life. The second reason runs counter to what most people assume, and it involves spousal and survivor benefit. The conventional advice is that the higher earning spouse should always delay to 70 because that maximizes the lifetime survivor benefit. And that's often true, but it says nothing about what the lower earning spouse should do. And the answer there is frequently file early. Here's how it works. A lower earning spouse can receive up to 50% of the higher earner's primary insurance amount as a spousal benefit, but only once the higher earner is filed. In many households, the lower earner's own benefit is modest enough that the spousal top-up will eventually be the dominant income source anyways, which means the long-term value of growing their own benefit from age 62 to 70 is relatively small. The real lever for that spouse's lifetime income is the high earner's delayed benefit, not their own. So a coordinated strategy might look like this. The higher earning spouse delays all the way to 70, building the largest possible benefit, and critically, the largest possible survivor benefit. Meanwhile, the lower earning spouse files at 62, bringing an income in the household during those bridge years before the bigger check kicks in. And then there's the survivor dimension. When one spouse passes, the surviving spouse keeps the higher of the two monthly amounts and loses the lower one. If the household has two smaller benefits because both spouses delayed modestly, they may have done less for the survivor's long-term security than had they concentrated the delay on the higher earner while letting the lower earner claim early. This is one of the more nuanced pieces of Social Security planning, and it's worth a conversation. This is one of the more nuanced pieces of Social Security planning, and it's a conversation worth having with a financial advisor before either spouse makes a claiming decision. Because the right move for the lower earning spouse often has less to do with break-even ages and a lot more to do with survivor income math. The third reason is one that gets overlooked even by people who've done their research. Using Social Security at 62 to protect your investment account during the years when your portfolio is most vulnerable. Most people think of Social Security income as something that replaces portfolio withdrawals later. But for someone with modest to moderate retirement savings, the order matters enormously. The early years of retirement, when markets can drop and you're forced to sell assets at low prices to cover living expenses, are exactly the years when a steady income floor protects you the most. Let me give you a picture of this. Picture a 62-year-old retiree. Call her Sandra. She has $420,000 saved, and she needs roughly $3,800 a month to cover her expenses. And her Social Security benefit at 62 is $1,400. If she delays to 67 and her portfolio hits a 25% drawdown in year 2 and 3 of retirement, she's selling investments at depressed prices to fund her full $3,800 monthly need. That sequence of return risk is one of the most damaging forces in early retirement, and no spreadsheet captures how much it costs in practice. If Sandra files at 62 instead, Social Security covers $1,400 of that monthly need, and she's only pulling $2,400 from the portfolio. The portfolio drawdown still hurts, but she's liquidating far fewer shares at the bottom. The question here isn't whether a higher Social Security check in her 70s would be better. It might be. The question is whether the portfolio survives intact long enough to get there. For retirees without a large financial cushion, the income floor at 62 isn't a consolation prize. It's a risk management decision. And by the way, if you're working through where your retirement actually stands right now, the link in the description has our retirement readiness scorecard. It takes about 5 minutes and gives you a clear picture of where you are. Fourth, and this is the one I think financial planning gets wrong more than any other, the go-go years. There is a well-documented pattern in retirement spending that researchers like David Blanchett at Morningstar have studied carefully. Early retirement is often the most active, highest spending phase. People travel, they visit family, they finally do the things they spent decades saying someday. Spending in this phase tends to be meaningfully higher than in the slow-go years that follow, typically mid-70s and beyond, where health and energy naturally change the picture. So the question isn't just which lifetime total is bigger, it's when do you actually need and want that money. Claiming at 62 means you have income during your most active retirement years, and if that income is the difference between going to see your grandchildren in December or staying home because travel feels too expensive, then the calculation has a dimension that a break-even chart simply doesn't capture. I think about two people, a couple I call Robert and Helen. They're both 62. They want to spend their early 60s traveling while their health is good. Robert's Social Security at 62 is $1,650 a month. His benefit at 70 would be $2,891. The difference over a 20-year retirement is real, but Robert and Helen have enough saved that either income level works. For them, the question isn't which strategy maximizes a spreadsheet. It's whether they want the resources to actually live the retirement they planned, starting now, when they can use them. Financial independence isn't going to sit on a beach doing nothing. It's being able to focus on what matters to you, whether that's income producing, a passion project, or simply seeing the people you love. Claiming at 62 in this situation isn't impatient, it's purposeful. And before anyone puts this in the comments, yes, I'm aware this argument has limits. If you genuinely need to maximize lifetime income because your savings are thin or your expenses are high, lifestyle enjoyment alone isn't a sufficient financial case. That's the hedge, and it matters. But for most households where both paths are financially viable, I want to use the money when I can enjoy it most is a legitimate reason, not a financial planning mistake. The fifth reason ties everything together, and it's a misunderstanding so widespread that even people who have done their homework on Social Security usually get it wrong. The break-even framework treats the decision as if it only involves you. But the real question for most retirees isn't do I live past 80? It's what happens to our total household income across all possible scenarios. The break-even calculation also ignores what you do with the money you receive early. If you claim at 62, invest even a portion of those checks rather than spending them, the math shifts. Because the delay strategy is really asking you to forgo real dollars now in exchange for a larger check later. And that forgone money has a time value. $1 of Social Security income at 62, invested even modestly, is worth more at 80 than $1 of Social Security income at 80. Let's walk through this with a hypothetical couple named Gary and Michelle, both 62. Gary's full retirement age benefit is $2,100. At 62, that drops to $1,470. At 70, it would grow to $2,604. The delay from 62 to 70 cost Gary 8 checks of $1,470, about $141,120 in foregone income. Break even purely on the check size difference, Gary needs to live until about 80 to 81 and collect the premium long enough to recover that gap. But say Gary takes the $1,470 a month at 62, and he and Michelle invest $500 of it each month rather than spending all of it. At a modest 5% average annual return, that contribution alone grows to nearly $59,000 by the time Gary hits 70. The effective break-even now shifts meaningfully later than the simple calculation suggests. None of this means delaying is wrong. For Gary and Michelle, who are in excellent health with strong savings, delaying until 70 probably still wins over a long retirement. But most people making this decision aren't running both scenarios with realistic assumptions. They're just hearing delay and accepting it as the default without understanding where they're actually giving up in the years they're not collecting. The single most expensive Social Security mistake isn't claiming too early. It's making any decision, early or late, without running your specific numbers. So to bring it together, Social Security at 62 makes sense when your health puts break even out of reach. When coordinating with a lower earning spouse's survivor income is the priority. When protecting your portfolio in the early retirement years matters more than maximizing a future check. When you're in the go-go years and the money serves you best right now. Or when the simple break-even math doesn't account for what you're actually giving up or how you use the money. These are workarounds. They're legitimate planning decisions that deserve a real analysis, not default. If you'd like to talk through your specific situation with me directly, there's a link in the description to schedule. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.